In 1885, families in New Orleans were staying cool through the worst of summer without a single watt of electricity. Meanwhile, in 2026, tiny house owners in hot climates are watching their electric bill spike to $150 in the middle of a July heat wave, just from running a mini split flat out. Something got lost between then and now, and it has been hiding in the walls of the house shaped like a shotgun this whole time. If you're building or buying a tiny home and you actually want to cut your summer power bill close to zero, hit subscribe right now, because by the end of this video, I'm going to hand you the one measurement that made these 19th century houses work and exactly how to steal it for a modern build. Stick around for that, because most tiny house builders in 2026 are still getting this completely backwards. Let's get into it. The shotgun house looks like it should be a terrible place to survive a Louisiana summer. It is narrow, usually 10 to 12 feet wide, sitting on a standard city lot as small as 30 feet by 120 feet. There is no hallway. Every room lines up directly behind the next, front door to back door, in a straight row. The name itself tells you the layout. Fire a shotgun through the front door, and the pellets would clear every room and exit the back door without hitting a wall. But the design itself did not start in Louisiana. Historians trace it back through a home style called the Cale, built in Saint-Domingue, the French colony that is now Haiti, which itself drew on building traditions carried across the Atlantic from West Africa. When the Haitian Revolution sent waves of refugees into New Orleans in the early 1800s, they brought this narrow, single-file floor plan with them, and it took root almost immediately. It spread fast, not because it was stylish, but because it was cheap to build on a narrow lot, and it solved a problem nobody else had solved well, keeping a house livable in brutal heat and humidity with zero mechanical help. Rows of these houses still stand in the Bywater, the Marigny, and uptown New Orleans. They were built for dock workers, laborers, and working-class families who could not afford a bigger lot or a fancier design. And yet, on the hottest days of the year, they held up better than a lot of the insulated, sealed-up tiny homes people are building right now. Here is what is actually happening inside a shotgun house. And it comes down to three forces working together, not just one. The first is cross-ventilation. When wind hits one side of the building, it creates a zone of higher pressure right where it strikes. On the opposite side of the building, a lower pressure zone forms. Air always wants to move from high pressure to low pressure. So if you give it a straight, unobstructed path, front door to back door, no hallway walls in the way, the wind pushes straight through the entire house. That is the shotgun layout in one sentence. It is a wind tunnel with furniture in it. The second force is the stack effect, and this one works even when there is no wind at all. Warm air is less dense than cool air, so it rises. Shotgun houses were built with tall ceilings, often 10 to 12 feet, and many had transom windows above the interior doors and near the roofline. As hot air collects near the ceiling, it escapes through those upper openings, and that escape creates a slight vacuum that pulls cooler air in through the lower windows and the raised foundation. You get a continuous loop, hot air out the top, cool air in at the bottom, running entirely on temperature difference in physics, with no electricity involved. The third force is one people almost never talk about: evaporative comfort. Moving air across your skin speeds up the evaporation of sweat, and that evaporation pulls heat away from your body directly. This is why a home can feel noticeably cooler than the thermometer says, even without dropping the actual air temperature. A sealed-up room at 82 degrees with no airflow feels sticky and oppressive. The same 82 degrees with a steady cross breeze moving through it feels genuinely comfortable. Shotgun houses were, without anyone using that phrase, engineered around this exact effect. Add in the fact that these houses were raised up on brick piers off the ground, which let air circulate underneath the floor joists instead of trapping heat and moisture against the earth. And you have a building that was, without anyone doing the math on a whiteboard, an extremely well-engineered passive cooling machine. Now let's talk about why so many 2026 tiny houses fight against their own occupants in the summer. Most tiny homes on wheels are built as a single rectangular box, often 8.5 feet wide to stay road legal, with 1 or 2 rooms and a loft. That sounds similar to a shotgun house on paper, narrow and rectangular, but the resemblance stops there. The ceiling height in a lot of tiny homes sits right around 7 to 8 feet at the walls, with almost no vertical space for hot air to stack up and escape before it just sits on top of everyone's head. There is usually no upper venting at all, and skylights, when they exist, are fixed and sealed rather than operable. Doors are rarely aligned front to back for a straight airflow path, and a huge share of tiny homes are finished with metal roofing and minimal roof venting, which turns the roof cavity into a slow cooker by early afternoon. Add oversized single-direction windows that were chosen for the aesthetic rather than the compass direction they face, and you get a box that traps heat instead of shedding it. So what does the fixed people reach for? A mini split. And to be fair, mini splits are efficient pieces of equipment. Standard baseline units in 2026 sit around 16 to 18 SEER2, but top-tier inverter models from brands like Daikin, Quilt, Senville, and Gree are reaching 22 to 27 SEER2 and higher, which is genuinely impressive engineering. But installed cost for even a single zone system, including the equipment, electrical disconnect, core drilling, refrigerant line work, and permits, is commonly landing between $2,500 to $5,500, with premium brands or complicated retrofits pushing past $6,000. On the running cost side, a well-insulated tiny house in a moderate climate typically sees $30 to $60 a month in electricity for baseline climate control. But that number is not the whole story. In genuinely hot regions, Texas, Florida, and yes, Louisiana, during peak July and August heat, when the compressor is running near 100% capacity for weeks at a time in a poorly shaded, poorly oriented tiny house, total summer electric bills regularly spike toward $100 to $150 a month. So you have a baseline cost most months, and then a real financial gut punch during the exact weeks you need the system most. You are paying real money every single month to solve a problem that a 200-year-old design solved for free using nothing but geometry. Let's put actual numbers next to each other, because this is where the shotgun house design wins, even if you never build a single historic detail into your home. A passive design running on cross ventilation and stack effect alone costs nothing to operate. $0 a month. The only cost is upfront, building the vents, the operable windows, and the roofline openings into your plans instead of adding them as an afterthought, which typically adds a modest amount to your build budget compared to the thousands you would spend retrofitting a mini split later. A mini split system, even a well-chosen one, costs $5,500 to $6,000 installed, plus $30 to $60 a month in a good month, spiking toward $150 a month during the worst heat. Run that out over a 5-year ownership window in a hot climate, and you're looking at several $1,000s in equipment and installation, plus another $2,000 to $4,000 in electricity, depending on your region and how hard the unit has to work. This is not an argument to rip out your mini split. It is an argument to stop asking that machine to do a job that smart design should be handling for free in the first place. The house and the machine should be splitting the work, not the machine doing all of it while the house actively fights against it. Here is the part one promised you at the start, the actual number that separates a shotgun house that breathes from a tiny house that suffocates. It is not the width of the house. It is the height difference between your low intake openings and your high exhaust openings, what building scientists call the stack height. The bigger that vertical gap, the stronger the pressure difference, and the stronger the pull of hot air out of your living space. A shotgun house with 10 to 12-foot ceilings and a transom window near the roof line was working with a stack height of 10 feet or more. A standard tiny house with flat 7-foot walls and no upper vent at all is working with a stack height of essentially 0. That is the entire difference between a house that ventilates itself and a house that needs a machine to do the job for it. You do not need 12-foot ceilings on a tiny home to use this. You need a deliberate low intake, a deliberate high exhaust, and enough vertical distance between them to create pressure. Even a modest stack height of 4 to 6 feet, built intentionally, will noticeably outperform a sealed box with 0 stack height at all. That is the whole trick, and almost nobody building tiny homes in 2026 is designing around it on purpose. So here is how you actually apply 19th century physics to a build going up this year. First, Align your primary entry door and at least one operable window or vent directly opposite each other, front to back, with as few walls in between as possible. Even in a small footprint, a straight air path beats a chopped-up floor plan every time. Second, add a roof vent, cupola, or operable skylight at the highest point of your roof line, and pair it with low, operable windows near the floor on the shaded side of the house. That gap between the two is your stack height, and even a modest version of it will pull warm air up and out continuously. Just make sure any upper exhaust vent is fitted with a fine mesh insect screen and a rain flap or louvered cover, so you get the airflow without letting bugs, wind-driven rain, or debris into the loft space. This is a small detail, but skip it and you will hear about it from every mosquito in a 5-mile radius. Third, if you have any flexibility in your build, raise the structure off the ground rather than skirting it tight to grade. Airflow underneath the floor keeps moisture and radiant heat from building up against your subfloor, the same trick those brick piers were doing back in the 1800s. Fourth, orient your largest windows away from direct west-facing sun. And if you cannot control orientation, use exterior shading, a porch overhang, or a simple awning, the same job a shotgun house's narrow front porch was quietly doing all along. Fifth, think about your climate specifically. In hot, humid regions like the Gulf Coast, prioritize constant airflow over sealing the house up tight, since moving air is what keeps a humid house feeling livable. In hot, dry regions like the desert Southwest, you can lean more heavily on thermal mass, materials like rammed earth, concrete, or even water storage that soak up heat during the day and release it slowly at night, paired with night flush ventilation where you open everything up after sunset to purge the heat the mass absorbed. None of this means skip the mini-split. In a lot of climates, you will still want backup mechanical cooling for the worst weeks of summer. But get the passive design right first, and that mini-split runs less, costs less to size, and costs less to operate every single month because the house is doing part of the work for free the way it was always supposed to. That is the real reason a 140-year-old shotgun house can outcool a brand new tiny home. It was designed around pressure, stack height, and airflow instead of fighting the climate with electricity. If this changes how you're thinking about your own build, hit subscribe, drop a comment with the climate you're building in, and I will keep digging into the designs that actually hold up in 2026, not just the ones that look good in a thumbnail. See you in the next one.